If there's one female Sonic character you know, it's Princess Sally Acorn, our titular Hog's one and only lover! That's canon, and there's no evidence to the contrary. But what you might not know is that this nut doesn't exist alone, because there's another sovereign squirrel who demands our attention. That's right, folks, it's Sonic the Hedgehog's brother-in-law, Prince Elias Acorn. Elias is introduced at an unfortunate point in the Archie Sonic comic. At a time when the series' own original lore and characters were taking up more and more focus, Elias is revealed in a similarly annoying fashion. I mean, we get a whole issue that's seemingly building up to Sonic's birthday celebration, but nah, this is actually about the return of our long-lost prince. It's yet another example of the comics' OCs and their struggles suddenly taking focus away from the characters I've actually spent time getting invested in. Characters like Sally. She's pretty important, right? Well, not anymore. Elias is immediately poised to take her position as leader thanks to their father, King Max, another character who's also been hogging the spotlight. All of this left me feeling that Elias, despite having a really cool design, would end up being just another unlikable OC who halts this comic's progress in its tracks. But here's the thing about Elias. Elias is too cool to hate. In fact, he might just be way past cool. Because Elias, he gets it. This comic is stuck, is going nowhere fast, and he's had enough. So when Sally thinks Sonic got their father hurt because of a misunderstanding, I'm ready to flip! Because yet again, we're driving a wedge between them and stalling their relationship? Nope, not allowed. Elias immediately clears the air. Then, when nothing's being done about their mother's declining health, Elias decides that, while our heroes are off playing Sonic Adventure, he's gonna go to Robotnik's territory and steal a cure himself, which leads to this genuinely heartwarming scene, as Sally's finally able to meet her mother. Really, that's what makes Elias shine most in this early section, his love for his sister. Because Elias doesn't want to be another source of conflict and misery for Sally. He wants to be her brother. He wants to know her. He even does his best to communicate his feelings by voicing them aloud to Sally's friend Nicole, asking her to relay this message for him while of course really speaking to her himself. A way of showing his sister that he too is having trouble connecting, and that she's not alone in this. It's an unexpectedly sweet scene. Probably one of the comic's strongest up to this point, and a great example of the types of moments that made him surprisingly endearing. Now, there's obviously a bit of a meme-y quality to my enjoyment of this absolute Chad, because at this time, I was pretty much done with the comic, and having a character reflect some of those same sentiments, it was both freeing and hilarious. However, there's still a genuine heart here that both of the main writers at this time, Carl Bollers and Ken Penders, managed to tap into. And when taken as a whole, they give Elias a consistently engaging story. Like, it's just compelling to watch Elias deal with his father's expectations, with a father who always seems to find some fault in what he's doing. You can't go on a mission like that. A true king doesn't work from the shadows. A true king is a divine right you must accept. But, of course, Elias, he doesn't want any of this. He just wants a normal life. He just wants to be with the family he's created for himself outside of this royal nonsense and to be left alone. No more politics. No more being told what to do from behind the scenes. And yet, whether he's abandoning his right to rule because he believes he will only make things worse for his people, or reclaiming it a year later because he knows that this burden will only make his sister miserable, Elias always takes everything upon himself. I abandoned the crown because of love. Now it's because of love that I must accept it. Throughout his sporadic appearances, Elias has remained a consistently enjoyable presence. If anything, despite my initial fears he'd take time away from the characters I enjoyed more, I actually wound up wishing I had more Elias, that the art would be able to convey more of the nuances of his struggle, and that the story would eventually reveal more about his character by digging deeper into his choices. Because while Elias has accepted that he must be a king, he clearly hasn't accepted that he is the king. And apparently I wasn't the only one who saw further potential in that conflict. Because when the torch was passed to new head writer Ian Flynn, he decided to continue and complete the way past coolness of Elias.
Hey losers, Scourge here, again. And you're probably wondering why I'm laying here looking up at you like this. Well, it's because I'm bored. If only I had a phone that'd let me get some high quality gaming at any time, anywhere, like the Red Magic 10 Pro, the sponsor of today's video. With their new generation of gaming phones, Red Magic has improved performance by 45%. Even still, it manages to be a slim, aesthetic phone with a 1.25mm ultra narrow bezel, no camera bump, and a Snapdragon 8 Elite chip, up to 24GB of ultra RAM and 1TB of storage inside. Never mind its 6.85-inch 144Hz refresh rate, 1.5K display with a peak brightness of 2000 nits. It's also rocking liquid metal cooling, a first for a phone. This bad boy's no slouch when it comes to videos either, with two 50-megapixel rear cameras. So now I can take pictures of these guys who live in my house and are late on their rent. Even with all this power, the phone has plenty of battery life, allowing you to play a bunch of games on the go. There's even a whole gaming mode built around getting into gameplay faster. So get your very own Red Magic 10 Pro using my link in the description. Until next time.
Flynn's first major arc in the comic is one of the densest things I've ever read. It's just wall-to-wall insanity with plot points from all over the comic's run getting wrapped up, condensed, or altered to fit Flynn's new direction for the story. And one part of that is exploring Elias's relationship with his duty as king. Right away, it seems things aren't going well for him. I mean, a tyrant steals his crown and his sword gets destroyed, one of his warriors falls in combat, and after stating that he needs to gather a group of knights to help in the fight against Eggman, they only even end up surviving this because Eggman chooses to let them live for the fun of it. Considering this is the kingdom's first real encounter with Eggman since Elias started ruling, yeah, this definitely isn't starting on a high note. Which leads us to one of my favorite moments in this arc. See, Elias is devastated by the death of his warrior, and he doesn't want to see anyone die. At the same time though, if he can't even accept one casualty, then how's he supposed to continue as a proper ruler? However, after a quick pep talk from Sonic, Elias comes to his conclusion. No, his sacrifice will not be in vain. The kingdom of Knothole will be as valiant as he was. I will try to be as brave, and his sword will be passed down the Acorn line, a symbol of our commitment and a testament to his bravery. The details are what really bring this home for me. The way that the panel layout reflects the prior page where his subject committed to this fight, even if it meant giving up his own life. The way Elias chooses to make this man's sword a new symbol of his resolve after their prior sword was destroyed in combat. It's a powerful representation of how, already, Elias is making this title his own. The old weapons, those symbols his father gave him that were passed down between his ancestors, a direct conduit of destiny, have been left behind. And Elias will carve a new path with the meaning he chose. He will be a king for the people, a king worthy of his people. However, there's one potential problem here. What would happen if he were to come into conflict with those people? Well, we get our answer with House of Cards, a two-part story where Tails' father leads a protest, demanding that the monarchy step down and for the government to be led by its people. And just like that, Elias's prior resolution is brought into question. How can he justify being king for the people if many of those people don't even want him anymore? But that isn't Elias's only problem. Of course not. There's still his father, the father who won't listen to him, won't change his mind, and won't accept anything less than a swift and final response to this riot. Now, Elias's relationship with his father has always been interesting. Or at least, it's always had the potential to be interesting. But beforehand, it would often be weakened by the lackluster presentation. Now though? Well, now we get to see it rendered in wonderfully expressive art, to see the nuanced facial expressions and body language of this father who expects his son to be a very specific extension of his own rules and ideals, and the broken, tired expressions of a son who simply wants his father's acceptance, who wants his father to love him, even though it really seems like his father wants a particular kind of prince more than he wants a son. All of this really brings Elias to life, to a degree that it feels like Elias is getting a lot more time than he actually is. In particular, I love any opportunity he gets to interact with Sonic. Elias totally gets that Sonic is the coolest guy ever and just genuinely enjoys spending time with him, a sentiment Sonic shares too. Probably because, despite their completely opposite roles in life, they both respect the other's heroism. Elias could be doing his royal duties, but nah, he's gonna personally show Sonic to a surprise birthday party that he helped plan. And later, when Elias has to tell Sonic that he's technically in legal trouble for going against his orders, he just smirks and pawns him off to his sister so they can go on the mission they wanted to in the first place as punishment. It all makes for a character who's exceptionally likable and who I want to see succeed. Really, we don't get that many pages with Elias as a whole, and yet he feels so alive because of the way he reacts to what everyone else is telling him, to those who question his rule, to those who want him to hold onto it, to all that's happening around him. He's stuck between everyone else, dealing with their expectations of him. between the failures of his ancestors and his duty to their legacy, between a people who need stability and their new vision for the kingdom, a vision that no longer involves him. But Elias comes to a conclusion. He'll fight Tails' father to protect the throne, once again submitting to what he sees as the will of the people, to uphold the status quo that so many have fought for. Because even if Elias doesn't want this position, to simply throw it away would be a dishonor to so many people he respects or feels responsible for. But what ties this all together? The main thing that causes Elias to stubbornly cling to his side rather than reach for a compromise is his father. And I love that the one who pulls him out of this is Sally, the person he became king for in the first place, because he wanted her to escape from this burden of monarchy, to have freedom to make her own choices and decide her own fate. So now she provides that for him too, stopping this fight and mediating a new path forward, one that suits Elias and this kingdom better than their father's rule ever did. It's such a nice, full circle moment for these characters, for this brother and sister who've always wanted to have a proper relationship, but have struggled to connect because of that duty. And now it's that sibling bond that allows both of them the opportunity to come into their own, that allows Sally to help her brother when, more than ever before, he needs someone to give him the space to make his choice. So he gives the people what they want, without entirely abandoning the ideals of those who fought and died for the monarchy. There will be an elected council of 6 civilians, while the king will preside over them as a 7th member. And his voice will have no more weight than those 6 others, offering stability during this continued war with Eggman, while still allowing the people more power. In the end, this conflict has only further proven his strength and resolve, just how much he's committed to being a king for the people. But even after all this, Elias' father doesn't accept it. He won't even look at his son, which makes this all the more meaningful. Because this story isn't about Elias earning his father's approval, even if Elias thought it was. This is about recognizing the type of king he wants to be. The type of king who, when a tyrant sorcerer and holdover of his father's prior failures turns the people's emotions against him, still refuses to give up. Even when the people have completely turned their backs on him, wanting a so-called strong king to protect them. At this point, Elias could have what he always wanted, to live away from this nonsense and simply protect the family he made for himself. But not this time. Even if he isn't officially the king, even if no one sees him as the king, he decides to continue to watch over his people from the shadows, the type of actions his father once reprimanded him for, the kind of behavior his previous advisor never thought him capable of, who never thought he would get beyond the passivity that made him so malleable and easy to control. For the first time in the comic, Elias finally takes complete and unwavering pride in his role. As he says, "I'm your king. That man is just keeping my crown warm." Because Elias now recognizes what he's always been, a man who makes his kingdom better, regardless of any feelings of inadequacy or fear. And the way Elias refuses to give up no matter how dark things can get, no matter how heavy this burden becomes, it makes him all the more likable. A powerful, aspirational character. As his mother tells him, "You've taken on a great burden, and you shoulder it well. Don't forget that you are king now, and it is your word that counts." And that really gets to the heart of Elias' story, doesn't it? It's all about recognizing your role in the larger world, while also recognizing that it's your role. You're as much a part of it as it's a part of you. And even a duty that's been forced upon you without your choice can often be made your own. And that's what makes King Elias such a cool character.